am the king, 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 king. I am the king, 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 king. I am the king, 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 king. I am the king, 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 king. I am the king.
Today on episode 15 of the Kings of the Village, we continue our Pride special, Living While Being Black in America and Living with Pride, and what does it take to live while being gay and black in America. We have a special guest for you today on the show, Rachel Tention, a 68-year-old black drag queen from the 70s and 80s and coming out in the late 60s while it was taboo. And she could have been arrested in most states. We have her story, plus Tiffany, a trans woman living in New York and trying to find employment. She will share her story of how difficult that is. Kings of the Village starts right now. Episode 11, the Pride Edition.
I am the king and will not be. I am the king.
Hey, how you doing? I'm Stephion. I am joined by Rachel Tention. How are you? Welcome to the show.
Oh, I'm great, baby. How are you, honey?
I am wonderful. I met Rachel, I think at a riverboat show years back before most of you were born. And I said, we have to talk to each other. We have to connect. Rachel Tention, legendary 68-year-old, still getting it, still dipping it and doing it. How are you doing this evening? What are you up to?
I am good, baby. I am lovely.
Good, wonderful. So you came out before it was popular to come out. Like you were like dipping it and doing it and in bathing suits and thongs when it was still crazy.
Well, see, the thing is, a lot of things have changed tremendously from the time of when I came out. When I came out years ago, it was more or less when we performed and everything, it was live. We did it live. We didn't have no lip singing or none of that. We did live shows. We performed. We came out and we wore the big hair and the big feathers, boas, and everything.
So you started back in you said in the 60s. How did you even know? Like, who were your influences? How did somebody in 1960, when the only thing popping was Aretha Franklin, maybe Tina Turner, and a few other bands, but nobody looked like you, nobody was acting like you back in the day, or was it a secret club?
Well, it was a secret club. They called them shanties, is what they called them. And you had to have a password to be able to get in. And we always was looking out for the police, because if they did a raid, you were going to jail. And then your name was put in the paper.
For being gay or for being a transsexual?
For being gay.
So you would go to jail and be put in the paper?
Yes.
Jesus.
And everybody would know, that you were arrested, and they would give your government name and everything. It was horrible.
So why in the world then, knowing all this in the 60s when you came out or wanted to be a transsexual person, or I guess what is better known as a drag queen, you weren't scared of doing it, or are you just something you love so much you said, the hell with everybody, I'm doing it?
Well, growing up, there wasn't people like me. We didn't know each other, and when you did, it was little secret codes and stuff people would say to each other that would let you know that they were interested without, letting everybody else know that they were interested. And the thing was, in the shanties, we could be who we wanted to be. Whoever we wanted to be, we could be who we wanted to be. And I had several friends. Like I said, I traveled. I went to New York, and I used to perform in Webster Hall and the Limelight in the 80s, and it was, different from the long ago, like the late 60s, because when I came out, I was probably 14, and I was put out of my parents' home because my father was a pastor, and I was put out of my parents' home because I was called a disgrace. And there was a white gentleman who lived not too far from where my parents lived, and no one ever said it. They would say little side things like he's got sugar in his tank or something like that. And I was like, well, this is the only person who I could think of to go to. And he took me in, and that's how I learned about shanties and things like that, and little passwords. And going in the clubs, I was, well, they don't have them anymore. It was a cigarette girl, as they called them back then.
So that's like the ones who stand in the bathroom now who sells cologne and mints and stuff now. So
Right.
Now, let me ask you this because we're going to get into some deep stuff, but you said something that is important, and we're going to kind of focus on that in the next episode. I got some guests coming up in the next episode where we're going to be talking about gay houses and voguing in that community. But you said you were put out of your house, and that's how many houses were started. What was that like for you when you got put out or you were seen as a disgrace back then? Like, where did you go?
It was, like I said, I went to the white man who, people around town would say, basically, he's got sugar in his tank. They would never say he was gay. But you would hear, the older folks talking about, well, I've never seen him with a woman or this, that, and the other. And so I went there because I felt like that may be a safe place for me. So, and then when I went there, I found out he was gay. So it was more or less that he took me in and showed me the ropes.
Wow. So back then, what were your worries? Because I know for me, when I came out, HIV was running rampant. Now
we didn't have HIV back then.
So what was the worry for your community? Was it
being killed?
Okay, being killed, going to jail. And so then we transition to today's world where the kids are worried about equal rights, being able to get married. Well, they got that passed. But just recently, before we go back to you, Rachel, we're going to talk about the big win that just happened this week in 2020 with people being now able to work without being discriminated against. I want to play this story, and then I want to get your thoughts on it, on what you think.
Mm-hmm.
Good morning. We have breaking news from the Supreme Court. It is a landmark decision for the LGBTQ community. The justice is ruling that it is illegal for workers to be dismissed from a job based on sexual orientation and gender identity. NBC Justice correspondent Pete Williams joins us with all the details. Pete, what can you tell us?
Well, this is a stunner, frankly, coming from this conservative Supreme Court that no longer has Anthony Kennedy among the justices, the man who wrote all the gay rights decision before. But today the Supreme Court has ruled that Title VII of the Civil Rights Act of 1964, which makes it illegal for employers to fire employees on the basis of sex, also covers sexual orientation. Now, the lower courts had been divided on this, and the Trump administration sided against this ruling, saying no, that when Congress passed the Civil Rights Act in 1964, nobody was thinking about sexual orientation. It was simply discrimination against men or women. But today, the Supreme Court said, no, that's not the case. Sexual orientation is considered part of that 1964 Civil Rights Act. Now, this is a victory for an Atlanta man, Gerald Bostock, who worked for the county and was fired after his employer discovered that he was on a gay softball team. He sued, and the lower court said, sorry, you can't sue under the Civil Rights Act. It doesn't cover sexual orientation. And today the Supreme Court said that's wrong. It's an issue that had divided the lower courts. Now, on the same day that this case was argued, the Supreme Court heard a separate case on whether it's also illegal under this same civil rights law to fire someone for transgender status. We don't have that decision. The Supreme Court, as you know, in this time of the pandemic is not actually in the courtroom. All this is happening virtually. And frankly, all we have so far in the decision is the very first page. But I'm told now that it's starting to line up, and the vote is 6-3 with Neil Gorsuch, one of the Trump appointees, joining the Chief Justice John Roberts and the court's four more liberal members to form this 6-3 majority. So this is a huge thing, and I would just say one other thing about this, Kate. Gay rights groups considered this even more important than the fight for marriage equality, because while not every gay person in America gets married, most gay adults want or need a job. And as of just a few minutes ago, it was possible to get married on Sunday and legally fired on Monday, but no more, Kate?
And Pete, you mentioned Neil Gorsuch. You had told us when we were preparing for this possibility today that he argued in the arguments, indicating that he might accept this argument that these rights are covered by that statute.
Yeah, he said that actually more in the transgender argument, but he seemed to be among the conservatives the one that was distantly possible to maybe be peeled away to join the majority, and that's what he's done here. We'll have to see what the logic is as this this thing is. I guess there are so many people on the Supreme Court website that the pages are loading very slowly.
So they did decide that this would be a win, Rachel. So for those who are just now tuning in, Rachel Tention, 68-year-old drag queen who has performed all over the world, from London to riverboats when you had to originally sing. You can always join in on the conversation anytime on Spreaker.com. You can listen live or on Spotify, iTunes, SoundCloud, Google Podcasts, and Apple Podcasts. You can stream anytime where streaming services are available. We are so happy to have you here. I do want to talk about, Rachel, all the things you've been through in your 68 years. You've had to deal with riots, Stonewall, HIV, smallpox, just about every single thing a person can deal with, overcoming trying to get a job, overcoming trying to, just trying to stay alive, not being beaten, not being arrested. And now we're trying to just not get fired for being gay. How are you dealing with all of this? And what are your thoughts on all these decisions? Do you buy into it? You believe it? You excited about it?
Well, I'm not as excited probably as some of the other people, because these things have all been said before. And the thing is, we really do not have equal rights, because even if they pass this law and you can't be fired because you're gay, transgender, or what have you, they'll just find another way to fire you under a different act, or just say that your work performance isn't what it's supposed to be, or anything, but it's really because you're gay. And I mean, this has been going on for centuries. I mean, in the 60s, if they suspected, not knowing, suspected that you were gay, you were fired from your job instantly. No questions asked. You were walked off your job, and most of the time, you didn't even know why you were walked off your job. Sometimes it was for being black, sometimes it was for being gay. You never knew, because being black and being gay, it's a double whammy.
Wow.
And the thing is, a lot of people turn to sex when they can't get regular mainstream jobs. And I've had lots of friends who walk the beat, and, we go out and perform, and then the next, after performing and we were working at night, after that, they would hit the streets, and they had pimps and everything. And I mean, it was, especially when I was in New York. New York was a place where, if you didn't have, there was always somebody there who was ready to take advantage of you. And pimps knew that, and they would target these young boys and these young girls, and they would target them, and they would put them on the street, and some of them would be working when they didn't even want to work.
Wow.
But the thing is, they had to do something because they needed an income, because especially if you were in the gay lifestyle, because it was like I said, in the mid to late 60s, it was really, really, really hard for a gay person. In the 70s, it became a little easier because it was more free love, so things got a little easier. I mean, it was still some places that you could be arrested still in the 70s for being gay.
So what do you think?
And,
when do you think it got acceptable? When do people start getting more comfortable with the community, you think? Or has it ever happened?
Well, I would say that nowadays it's definitely more acceptable to be transgender or gay or things like that than it was back then. But I would say probably towards the late 80s and 90s, things start changing when all these talk shows came and they would have gay people on it. And I mean, people would live for those moments. They would live for it. Yeah. They would tune in when they said they were going to have drag queens on the show. They would tune in when they said they have gay people. I mean, that was their biggest ratings. And the way that the media works is if the ratings get big during these type of things, this is what they want to promote. And that's why you see gay people in different movies now and transgenders getting roles as real women would get. I mean, it's become great, but like I said, it's still that underlying border prejudice there, just like with black people. I mean, it's that borderline prejudice that's still there. I may smile in your face, but I still may feel a certain way about you.
Right. Do you think there's a big difference between a trans woman who lives as a woman and a drag queen who just does it for entertainment purposes only?
Well, yes, it is. It's a major difference because for me, myself, I've never considered myself a trans woman. I've never wanted to be a woman. I enjoy being a man. But my husband, who I have been with for the last 40 years now.
Oh my gosh.
Which is an ironic story.
Well, we'd like to hear it.
Okay. In 1969, I was arrested in New York City and was sent to jail. There was a young officer there that was with the arresting party that arrested me. His name was Michael. And we never talked or anything. In 1974, I ran into Michael. He had moved from New York City and he had moved to, I want to say I was in Tennessee then. And I ran into him and he was like, "You don't remember me, do you?" And I was like, "No, I really don't." And he was like, "I arrested you in 1969. And we just became friends and, talking. And in 1980, we would hang out before 1980. Let's get back to that. We went back to New York, and that's when Studio 54 was going on.
Oh yeah,
and
I was not old enough to enjoy that though.
No, you was not, honey. You definitely wasn't. But that's when people felt the lower class and the upper class blended together, and everybody was the same class. You know what I'm saying?
Sure.
It was a place where everybody could be themselves. I mean, whether you was gay, straight, whatever, because, I mean, a lot of celebrities who were claiming they were straight was doing a lot of gay things in Studio 54. Yeah. But the thing is, you could rub elbows with people who you were admiring. You know what I mean? So, me and Michael became really, really close then, and in 1980, we started dating, and we wanted to get married, but there was nowhere in the States where we could be married. Now, in 98, you could get a civil union in Martha's Vineyard. You could go there and get a civil union. A lot of people didn't know about that because they didn't publicize it because they didn't want, a lot of people to know about it. And another place was Providence. That was another place you could get married. And so we decided to go get a civil union, and we did that. But 13 years ago, we actually had an actual wedding.
How in the world did you get away with that back in the day? How did that even happen? Who facilitated it?
Like I said, in Martha's Vineyard and Providence, those two places, you could get a civil union.
But nobody showed up to shut it down or bomb it or throw fire at you?
No. The thing is, you just went to like a justice of the peace.
Wow.
And you didn't get a marriage license, but you got a civil union, which is like a partnership.
Wow, that's beautiful.
It wasn't saying that you were married. It just said you were a civil union.
I do have a question. Wow, that's a beautiful story. So Kelsey Vega from North Carolina wants to know, how were you so resilient? You got arrested. I'm sure you were taunted, called whatever kind of names they called you now and then and begin and before. How were you so resilient?
I mean, because I was determined to be who I was. I was proud of who I am, regardless of what my parents had said about me or regardless of what people in the streets said about me. God made me, and I am going to stand on who I am. Regardless of whether you beat me to a pulp, I'm going to get up that next morning, whether I'm dragging my leg or pushing my head up because you done knocked my head to the side. I'm going to continue to fight for you to accept me because I am who I am and I love who I am, and you're going to love me too.
Another question comes from April Fleming from North Dakota. She writes this on kingsofthevillage@yahoo.com. How did you get the clothing and where did you get it? By being a black gay man, were you able to just buy women's clothing, and did anybody question you?
Well, when you're gay, you always have, as y'all call them now, women who want their Judies. But
I guess Judy's would be best friend, right?
Yes, and they would go and purchase the items for us.
Oh, okay.
They would purchase items for us, and a lot of the lesbian women would purchase the items for us because in the 60s on the streets, when we if we took to the streets and marched for being gay, we had to dress. I couldn't dress like a woman. I would have to dress like a man, and we would have to conservatively march that way because we couldn't march in the way that the women that were lesbians would have to wear skirts and a tailored shirt, and everybody had to look a certain type of way because that's the way they wanted us to look. And like I told a friend of mine who's passed on to glory now, but I told her that I don't want to conform to them. I want them to conform to me. Why should I have to change who I am for them when they're not changing to conform to me?
I know that's right. Absolutely.
So, like I said, I have taken a lot. And like I said, in 1969, I was arrested. I had just turned 17. Yeah, 17. I was 17, getting ready to turn 18. I take it right back. I was 17, getting ready to turn 18. And what was that? I might have been getting ready to turn 17, but I can't remember really. But the thing is, first of all, I wasn't even supposed to be in the club because I was 17 years old. But the thing is, they didn't care whether you were 17, 15, 21, 25. They still put you in the same jail with
right.
everybody else. Sure. They would snatch your wigs off and you'd be sitting up there, if you didn't have hair, you'd be bald headed with, a face beautiful and dressed like a woman, and you'd be sitting in a man's jail and look like a woman, but they would snatch your wigs off your head, and if you wear hair pieces, they would pull your hair out. I mean, it was a lot. It was a lot.
Imagine, yeah. Monica Lewis from Chicago, shout out to Chi-Town, wants to know, are drag queens trendsetters or are you just women stealers? Do you steal stuff from women?
Well, no. I would say that actually, nowadays I would say the men are stealing from drag queens. But no, I mean, it's kind of, we kind of set the fashion, and a lot of women trend off of a lot of gay fashion because we, stepping up a notch. And like I said, I've been watching a lot of these tutorials and stuff. And these young girls are doing some of the things that us drag queen and transgender has been doing for years. The way they put on their makeup is the way we put on our makeup for years. Right. But now they're doing it because of the way it makes them look and the way it makes them feel. Like I said, if you got something that, Maybelline does not cover up raising up. So you got to do other things to make your face look more feminine, and you have to make yourself look more nice. And so if a woman has bumps on her face, or if she doesn't have a nose that she likes, she learns how to contour and do all these things. And this is the stuff that drag queens have been doing for years, and they're just now catching up to what we've been doing.
That's right. So what was your life like? Because you were a world traveler. What was life like in London and Puerto Rico versus, New York to me is pretty liberal, versus Indianapolis or Chicago.
Well,
but what was it like?
New York did not used to be as liberal as you think.
Yeah. So they were a little crazy and racist, and I'm sure everywhere had that. But it seems like when it comes to the, setting the world or the narrative, it's always started either in L.A. or New York. But what was it like overseas for, a drag queen or a trans person? What was life like for that?
I'm going to tell you the best place I actually went that was very acceptable of transgender and drag queen women was the Philippines.
Oh, wow. Who would have known that?
They actually celebrate the femininity of a feminine man. They celebrate it.
Huh. Who knew?
And, the Philippines. It is a wonderful place for transgenders and drag queens because they actually celebrate the fact of the whole transgenderism. They love that.
I love it. I think it's beautiful. But let's get into something serious, though. I got something I want you to hear and check out, because there is a war on trans people. There's a war on drag queens. There's a war still on the gay community. And I want you to hear something. It's about a very young I got two stories for you, actually. In 2019, there was 26 reported deaths for trans women. In 2020, currently, there's 15 reported. We know that there's probably many more, but I do want the listeners to hear how brutal it is to live as a trans person, and we'll talk on the other side of this.
Okay.
I want you to hear this. I want you to...
He last saw his best friend Sunday, and he says he even talked to her the night he thinks she died. You can still see the charred grass from where the car went up in flames. Many people in this community say it was a targeted attack.
To me, it's just very devastating to know that, life happens that way. It's very sad.
An unsettling death for this Hendry County neighborhood.
The car was on fire, so I didn't know, there'd be a body inside.
Kennard Wade says his best friend is the one Hendry County Sheriff deputies found dead.
That's her car. I know that. I know her car.
Wade says the two have known each other for 6 years, and that his best friend wasn't afraid of anyone who didn't agree with her.
Really, really sweetheart. And she's never harmed anyone, never put anyone in harm's way.
But he says someone wanted to harm her. And he says in these texts the night of the car fire, she knew it, telling him she wanted to leave town.
How would someone go to that extreme to, get rid of her?
Investigators would not release any more details for us tonight about the car or about the person's identity who was found inside.
So this trans person, somebody wanted her gone so bad that they burnt her up inside her car. You hear so many stories like this, and they go either not reported or identified as trans people, or they never even talk about it. They never even make the news. What is your thoughts on that? Because here's what I think before you answer that. It's a lot of guys, straight guys who are, let me say they live as straight people, heterosexuals, but then they go on dates with trannies or transsexuals or drag queens, or they have sex with them, and then they don't want anybody to know or want anybody to find out, so they dispose of them like they're human trash. What are your thoughts? What are your experiences, or what are some of the cases you've heard about?
I had a friend, really, really good friend. She was transgender, and she was much, much younger than I was. I met her, I want to say, when I went to the Palace in Atlanta. I met this young lady, and very, very sweet young lady. She was a trans woman and very beautiful, very, very beautiful. And if you did not know, she would have never been clocked, as they say. She had a gentleman who she was dating, and they had been dating for a while, and the family had met her and everything. No one knew that she was a guy, but he was out with his friends one night, and one of his friends was undercover. And he basically had told the trans lady that I knew that if she didn't have sex with him, that he would tell, everybody that his best friend was dating a man. And she, of course, did not have sex with him. So he told the other friends that the lady that he was dating was a trans woman, and they beat her boyfriend to death.
Wow.
They beat him to death. Now, these were his friends, not her friends, his friends. And they beat him to death because they said, you are an undercover fag, and this, that, and the other. So many horrible other things that they called him. But then I had a friend that she was a trans, but she was a prostitute, and they found her body in a trash can behind Union Station, and it was really, really, that was a very tough moment for me, because she was like a sister to me, and she was very sweet, and she had to do what she had to do because that was her living, because she couldn't get a job working as a woman, and she lived her life as a woman, but
sure,
no one would want to hire her, especially because she was a trans, and she worked as a prostitute. And like I said, I begged her to come move away or, travel with me. And she was like, no, she was happy where she was. She had a little boyfriend and stuff. But I got a phone call probably about 3 months after I had left that town, and they had told me they had found her body in a trash can, brutally beat to death.
That is awful. If you're just now tuning in, we're talking to the real Rachel Tention, 68-year-old drag queen who has performed, traveled, and lived all over the planet. We are so delighted to have you on the program. I want to play this for you, and we'll talk on the other side of this.
A transgender woman brutally attacked in Texas last month was found shot and killed over the weekend. Video from April's assault shows several men beating the woman in a Dallas parking lot. CBS This Morning investigative correspondent Anna Werner has been following this story for us. Anna, good morning. Look at that video.
Good morning. Community and political leaders are mourning Malaysia Booker's death. Democratic presidential contenders Kamala Harris, Elizabeth Warren, and Pete Buttigieg are calling for action, while Beto O'Rourke tweeted that transgender women of color across America deserve better.
This time it was me, the next time it could be someone else close to you.
Less than a month after speaking out about her attack, Malaysia Booker was found shot to death in a Dallas neighborhood.
Upon arrival, officers found the complainant lying face down in the street, deceased from homicidal violence.
Booker's previous assault in April was captured on cell phone video. The 23-year-old told authorities she was beaten following a minor traffic accident and said her attackers used homophobic slurs. Authorities charged Edward Thomas with aggravated assault. Although it was flagged as a hate crime, gender identity is not listed under Texas's hate crime statute. At this point, police have not connected that attack to Booker's murder. Her father hopes it wasn't a targeted killing.
I pray that it wasn't, because I don't want to see nobody's child go through any of this, nobody's family.
Everywhere we go, she was picked on because she's transgender.
Advocacy groups say attacks on transgender people in the U.S. are on the rise. Last year, the Human Rights Campaign tracked at least 26 deaths due to fatal violence. The majority of victims were black transgender women. Experts say as shocking as the numbers are, the number of victims could be even higher.
So often, they will remain silent. And the data we have is based on the folks who have reported. We don't know about the folks who suffer in silence.
So why do we still suffer in silence, Rachel? Why do people not talk about it? Do they feel like they just won't get help? Are they scared, embarrassed? Why are we not talking about it?
I believe that a lot of it is that they're scared because they know that regardless of whether I go to the police and these people are harassing me because of who I am, you know, they're not going to take you as serious as, dare I say, a white woman saying that a black man attacked her.
Wow. Like
the woman said, she was due to the guy when he was in Central Park bird watching, you know. It's a very sad thing because, how can I put this? It's sad because so many people feel like their voices are not being heard. But it's sadder because so many voices are shut down and they don't want to tell anybody because if they put it out there, then they feel like they're going to be even targeted even more because of the things that are going, if you tell anybody, I'll make it hell for you. You know, I've heard all these things. I've heard such horrible things that people have said, and I've known people who have went through some horrible, horrible things. But the thing is, we have got to stand up. It just takes one. We have to stand up for our own rights. If you do not stand up for your rights, then no one will stand with you. You have to stand. Because if you don't stand up for yourself, who else is going to stand for you? If you don't believe in yourself, you have to believe in yourself. If you're happy with who you are and you're doing what you're doing and you know that everything that you're doing, you're not doing anything to hurt anybody and you're just doing something to make you happy, you stand for yourself. You stand for your rights regardless of what people may think about you, regardless of what they may say about you. You have to stand firm and strong on what you believe in.
That's preaching. That's a message right there. Stand firm and find somebody, I always say, that's going to support you and love on you. And also hang out with somebody who's interested in the same things and put your arms around them. I know that's difficult in some communities or in rural communities, especially, you know, you being out in the 60s and 70s and 80s. I'm sure that was extremely difficult to find back then.
It was.
But that was a message that you stood steadfast in, and obviously you are still around today. On a lighter note, who are some of your favorite people performing now? Do you like the RuPaul's Drag Race? Do you like some of the local shows, Hamburger Mary shows? Who are you loving on right now? Who are your people?
Well, speaking of RuPaul, you know, he used my name in the movie Tu Wong Fu.
Oh, wow. I did not know that.
Yes, it was asked that whether he could use my name, and I had agreed to it, and I don't know if he personally asked or somebody from the studio.
Did you guys ever meet?
I've never personally met RuPaul. We have been in the same cities at the same time and just totally missed each other, which is a sad thing. But like I said, I've met a lot of very nice people who are trans and gay young men and drag queens. Like I said, because I've traveled so many places, but I don't know. If I had to say I have a favorite, no. I have a lot of respect for a lot of trans women because I love the fact that they are coming out and they are getting their faces on TV and they are being seen and they are being proud of who they are. And I'm loving that. And I'm noticing that drag shows are picking up all over the world because people want to see this. And I mean, even in the 70s and 80s, I mean, people would flock to drag shows. And I mean, I performed at a lot of clubs, and it was always more straight people there than gay people. And as I got older, I did a lot of matinees. And it was a performer in Indiana. I can't remember what her name is. I want to say I had brought her out to Atlanta one time. Her name was Foxy Roxy. That was her name. And,
is that the one who was on the river boats with you and did those shows on the boats?
Yes. I had brought her with me, and she was much younger than I, but I knew of her and Goodall. They were really decent people when I came down to Indiana, you know, and that's a little place where it is
a very little place.
A lot prejudiced, but you know, the people there, most of them are really nice. So,
yeah. Well, listen, I spent some time in Indiana, and I got my life at a little club called Betty Boop's. On the I guess near the Holstro, as everybody would call it, or the Beat, or the Regal Beagle. I'm sure you're familiar with all those places.
I've heard of those places.
Oh, I know you have. So you've been out quite a long time. Before I let you go, I do want to say thank you for keeping us inspired, and that message of, you know, believing in yourself, staying strong, you know, planting your feet down. All you can do is get up and put one foot in front of yourself. What are some of the things that you are doing right now? Are you done? Have you hung up the evening gown? Or can people still find you somewhere? Like, what are you doing these days at 68, other than being a wonderful married person and cooking and or whatever? What are you doing?
Well, actually, I don't perform anymore. Right now, I talk to a lot of the young transgenders and the gay and bisexual youth, and to let them know, you know, basically that, you know, I grew up in a time when it wasn't popular.
Sure.
You know, now it's popular. And like I said, being gay is not a choice. It's not a choice. You know, if I could choose to be anything else, gay would probably not be the choice I made, because it is very hard to be gay, and then it's even harder to be black and gay. So I try to inspire these children to, you know, basically know that that same person who talks about you, they put on their pants the same way you do. You can't jump into your clothes. You got to put them on one leg at a time. So ain't nobody better than nobody else, because your thoughts are no better than his thoughts. And his thoughts are no better than your thoughts. It's just that they can see your thoughts and you can't see that person. I said, but you got to believe that you are as good as anybody else, because if you don't believe you're good as anybody else, nobody else will believe it either.
That's right. So I got to know what your thoughts are on the state of the world, the war on black people, the war on gay people. This is obviously long overdue, but you've seen so many marches, protests, riots, buildings being burnt down.
Yeah, I seen King when he died and all kinds of stuff. Yeah, I've seen it all.
So you've lived through that. What are your thoughts now with the kids that are in the streets right now? They're about 30 days in. What is your message to them now?
Well, I got a message not only to the people who are riding, I have a message to the police exactly.
All right, let's hear it.
Because my message to the police is this and this alone, being that I'm married to a police officer. My message is, if you don't do a law-abiding stuff, how can you expect the people that you're supposed to be protecting believe that you're protecting them if you're not doing any protecting to a certain group of people? And now that they're out rioting and looting, that the reason they're doing that type of thing is because they're trying to show you that you're not protecting me. You're not doing anything. I'm going to do the same thing you're doing because we're on the same level. And that is what they're proving to you by looting and doing those things. People don't understand why they're looting, but I see the bigger picture of why they're doing what they're doing. I understood it in 1968 and I understand it today. I understand that the fact of the matter why they're looting is to It's to prove a point. It's not because they're trying to get free stuff or nothing like that. It is to prove a point. If you don't have to abide by the law, why should I?
Wow, that's a powerful
That is
message.
what they're trying to prove.
Absolutely.
And to the people who are out there marching, I applaud you, and I say stand tall and stand proud, because as long as you do it with love and kindness, as King did, you will overcome. You will overcome. And everything that we worked so hard for, being black, first of all, because being black was already my first crime. Secondly, being gay was my next crime. Thirdly, dressing like a woman was my, you have so many strikes against you and so many things to overcome. But if you look at those negatives and make them positives, you can't let anybody destroy who you are. Yes, they may call you nigger. Yes, they may call you fag or man boy or whatever they may call you. But you've got to stand strong. You have to think about it like this. I don't know how religious most of your viewers are, but I'll tell you like this. They talked about Jesus Christ, and we can't even begin to compare to the things that he endured for us.
Hello.
So I just tell people to stand strong on what you believe in. God loves us all, regardless of who we are.
I would like to believe that and agree with that myself. I think we are all on this planet to serve and be a part of it. I don't know why it's up for debate for us to be able to work equally, to be able to get married, to hold hands. We got to hide. People are still a DL on the low, like scared to come out, still can't tell their parents, still destroyed by it, still shunned and kicked out of houses. Like, it is ridiculous to me that in 2020 we are still fighting for the same stuff just to live on this planet. But they'll be glad to take our money at restaurants and everywhere else. But we just don't get treated fairly. And I think we got a long way to go still. And I know we've been saying that forever.
Yes, we do.
It's just,
yes, we do.
At some point you just get tired, but I am so happy that by this movement that I'm seeing, that people have, got me fired up again, because, I'm 43 and, I've been beaten down, talked about like everybody else too, called this, called that. People didn't always accept me in certain places, even though I was loud and proud. So I am glad the resurgence of this group of people, and not just young people, but people of all different races and colors, marching with everybody, not just straight people, not just gay, not just black, but every races in Germany, India, everywhere. So right. There is hope that something has happened. People's conscience have been, shook into the core. It's been rocked to the core, so people are fired up again and re-energized, and that's all we can ask for. The legend, the real Rachel Tention, the 68-year-old living legend, drag queen extraordinaire, our guest today. Thank you so much. I appreciate you.
No problem. Thank you.
It has been a pleasure to speak with you again. I have to find you because I never know where you are. I know you're going to probably be in Guatemala somewhere doing the Christmas anniversary for the troops. Who knows where you'll be next? So I appreciate all the time you and your husband always give me, and the attention and all the wonderful meals. I am delighted, though, that I will get a chance to see you soon, actually, for our annual Beans and Chicken Fest I look forward to in a couple of weeks for the 4th of July weekend. I don't even think that's been canceled. Everything around us has been canceled in the world, but I think you can still eat and go some places, and I look forward to our 4th of July Beans and Chicken Fest. Miss Rachel.
Can't stop me from cooking now.
I know that's right. Well, as long as you got that big hungry man, you gotta cook. You gotta cook for that hungry, that fine popo of a man you got, Mr. Officer. All right, I will let you go. Rachel Tention, thank you so much. I look forward to seeing you in a couple of weeks for the fest, and I want you to have a perfect night.
You too, Stephan, and I hope your show goes well.
Thank you. Bye. It was good talking to you. Bye. Rachel, the real Rachel Tention, 68-year-old extraordinaire who has spent a decade of his life ensuring and protecting the rights of our community. working diligently, doing everything he possibly can, and his husband, who is a police officer. But for the sake of their privacy, we will not mention his name. Couldn't be more delighted to speak with him this evening. Before I leave you, though, I do want to let you hear a little bit more about what some drag queens and transsexual women go through in the community. If you did not know, more than 47% of trans women will not be hired this year or promoted. And as you probably heard Rachel Tention talk about, they always have to resort to sex or something underground to make a living. But I believe that there is hope for them. I believe that help is on the way. I believe there is opportunity coming their way. I don't think it'll be quick and swift, but I think that the world is waking up again. You know, everybody talks about how woke they are when it comes to certain things, but I do believe that the trans community is still one of those underground, forgotten communities. But I do want you to listen to the story that was first aired on Fusion Television. This is the story of Tiffany.
When I was young, I was playing in my mother's makeup. I was wearing, feminine clothes, playing around. But I definitely knew something was different about me. I definitely knew that, gay was... I didn't really know too much about, the transgender lifestyle. I didn't really know that that was what I wanted to be until I was, the age of 17. I told my mom she wasn't comfortable with me being, gay at that point. So I ended up just grabbing the bags, and the little money that I had, and I just got on the train and went to Manhattan and never looked back. Once you become a transgender, it's that's the first thing you learn is how to do sex work. It was something that came up once I needed to make a living. It was it just automatically just clicked with me. It was once I transitioned, this was my ideal job. This was in 2005, 2004. These are pictures that I used to use for escorting and pictures that I used to take in my own. I wasn't really thinking about my future. I was only thinking about what's happening at that moment, and at that moment I was just wasting days and days and days and hours of my life just doing nothing. I couldn't do it anymore. So I woke up and said, you know what, I'm going to try to make a change. And that's when I went back to welfare and I got some administrative training. They gave me a position working at DCAS, and DCAS was the ones who gave me a file room, and I was being a file room all day, just filing away my life. I was working for pennies on a dollar. I'm basically getting nothing. But the only reason why I didn't let that get to me is because I knew that later on it was going to benefit me. Somehow, I was right, and I ended up getting connected with the center. I describe the center as kind of the church of the community. When I was younger, that was the place that I went to for services and for resources and information, how to, go about being a gay, African American.
Hi, Tiffany. You have another client waiting for HIV testing. Mm-hmm.
So I went and volunteered, for a couple of months, and I got some training, as I was volunteering, and then Christina Herrera one day called me up and said, hey, Tiffany, you got hired for the position as an intern. I was like, are you serious? I couldn't believe it. I started screaming on top of my lungs.
So, can you tell me what brought you in today? I come to for activity testing. Mm-hmm. This is your first time here?
I know the center requires you to at least have a high school diploma in order for you to get a full-time job there. So that's pretty much what I'm working on, because I don't have my GED, and it's been very difficult because I want to work full-time and I want to have a full-time position. I want to move up the ladder eventually, and I have to have a GED if I'm going to make that happen. Tonight we're going to be doing outreach, where I'm going to be providing HIV testing and resource information to different community institutions. pretty much just give out condoms and lubrication. Because I have this one job and it's kind of like my only source of income, I have to make up as many hours as possible. And they can only give me a certain amount of hours because I'm not full-time. So it makes it very difficult to work and go to school at the same time because I don't have enough money for it. When I see that paycheck that comes in every Friday, even though it's just $100, but it's like I worked for that. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's not a lot of money, but I'm happy. Like, I feel good that I'm actually working a normal job. Like, I feel like a normal person. I don't feel like just the average transgender, sex worker.
And I think that is the message of today. People just want to feel normal. They want to be included. And they just want to work just like anybody else in the world. That's all they want to do. And I wanted to play Tiffany's story because it's a struggle every day for some people, especially people in our community that are that live as trans women, drag queen women. They just want to be normal too. They just want to work, earn a living, live in a nice place, and pay their bills and be left the F alone. And I think that it is heartbreaking that we are in today's world and we still don't have an opportunity to do that. Where more than 47% of them, trans women, will not be hired at all or will never, ever get a promotion. And I think that is just heartbreaking. Some people will never have to experience that. Some people will never be able to relate to that. This is why we wanted to highlight those particular stories. On Kings of the Village, all we can do is support and lift people up every day. That is the mission and the goal. And again, I can't say it enough. Find people who are interested in those same things. Get in those communities, whether it's a gay house, a gay organization, club, a center. Do your research. Even if you don't have a computer, go to the library and look it up. It's just free resources there. But we cannot do it alone. It's not possible. Everybody needs somebody to survive in this world. That was the story of Tiffany, who, lives an underground life. And that's just one person in the trans community that is trying and living off $100 a week. $100 a week. And people say, oh, well, why do they do this and why do they do that? Why do they have to resort to doing that? Because they're hungry and they need to live. And many of them have to become sex workers or sell drugs or do whatever it is they have to do or steal because they have nowhere to go. And as you know, in the winter, it gets cold out here and you got to go into survival mode. So again, we appreciate you joining us. Special shout out to the real Rachel Tention, our special guest. We will continue our special Living as a Trans Drag Gay Person While Being Black in America. And we will also equally continue our series on the war on Black America. I appreciate you joining me on this episode. On episode 16, we'll keep talking, y'all. Go out and make it a perfect evening. I'm Stephion. Join us next time where you can be a part of the conversation at kingsofthevillage@yahoo.com or on any streaming platforms like Google Podcasts, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and iHeartRadio. And stay connected with us all the time on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and even Tumblr.